Alrighty, rock and roll. Here we are at the Scorched Earth Political Podcast for beautiful Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. I'm your host, John. If you could, please hit that like and subscribe button. It means a lot to us. And if you could, leave some comments. I want to try and be as honest as I can here today. And I have, but sometimes you get to a new level of honesty, maybe a new level of self-discovery. And we've gotten some comments the last couple days that really have, I don't know, humbled, grounded, opened my eyes. You know, I try and do stories. I try and speak to truth as best as I can. Some days maybe I'm a little more effective than others. You know, some days you make it, some days you don't, right? But you just keep trying. And we're all in this together. And I love you all and I need you all. And, you know, I have a great friend. He still is a great friend, Bill. And he asked, you know, a week ago, like, what's the goal here? And really the goal is just truth. It's just truth. Truth as I see it. Look, my truth doesn't have to be your truth, and it doesn't make me right. It doesn't make you wrong. Unless you disagree with me, then of course you're wrong. But seriously, you know, I'm speaking to it, but I'm blessed in a lot of ways, right? I got a roof over my head. Obviously, as you can see, I got plenty to eat. I got a great group of friends. You know, I got parents. I got a beautiful support network. And we get some comments. Got a comment yesterday, and it was, I'm a 71-year-old veteran who's, you know, dealing with some medical issues, and are they trying to make me homeless? You know, and this is in response to our segment the other day on Howard Lutnick and him being so, the billionaire commerce secretary, and him being so goddamn condescending and arrogant about, hey, if you don't get a check, you know, it'll probably come next month. And if you yell, it's just because you're a fraudster. Look, I've worked way too long. I've dealt with way too many things. Sometimes you don't get paid and you need the money. You effing need the money. Like, if I don't get paid, the bills, the lights go off, the water gets shut off. I've been there, man. I've had to go bankrupt. It's not pretty. When you're on that side of it, it sucks. And, you know, everybody, look, people are empathetic, but unless you've been down that road, man, you don't know how terrible that stuff is. It sucks. And we got somebody who wrote in, and, you know, they're vulnerable. They need their Social Security check. This isn't we're investing in crypto. This isn't investing in T-bills or stocks. You know, economists pretty much unanimously agree that the best money a government can spend is for unemployment, right? And the reason is, once you spend it on unemployment, it literally goes to the infrastructure of society. It goes to pay rent. It goes to pay food. It goes to pay utilities. It goes to essential things. People are not taking their unemployment check and going, hey, come on, hard eight. Let's blackjack. No. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple people, but for the most, 99%, they're just trying to keep a roof over their head. And I'm not sure if the person who wrote the comment was a man or woman, but it touches your heart. And it makes you realize this is real shit. This is real stuff. This is really affecting lives. And I'm going to plead guilty. I'm reading it and I'm not feeling it, but I feel it now. I've got a couple comments. I got a couple emails. These people are scared. Like, the next stop is the street. You know, there's this perception that the people on the street want to be on the street. Fuck you. Straight up. Yeah. They don't want electricity. They don't want TV. They don't want internet. Nah, they want to be on the street. Yeah, there's people with mental disorders. I'm not going to argue that. But nobody willingly goes to the street. That's just horse BS on horse BS. Straight up. I mean, my God. How stupid could you be to go, yeah, those people just want to go to the street. They go to the street, they get there because they got nowhere else to go, and then they make the best of it. I hate these people who go, well, they enjoy that life on the street. No, they learn how to exist. They learn how to exist. And how many of those homeless people get robbed? They get mugged and nobody cares. They get assaulted. Nobody cares. There used to be a group of kids that I knew of. They would go through homeless encampments trying to steal the money because they knew most of the people in homeless got a small Social Security check and they didn't have bank accounts. They had to hide the money in the homeless encampments. It was a big thing. Yeah, it's really cute. Let's go to homeless encampments and steal money. My God. And then they grew up and they took over the presidency. President 47, right? So, I want to tell you, right, feel, love, we're all in this together. And I want to speak to our truth, and I like the emails, I like the comments, because it brings a new sense of what this really is. We're fighting for rights, I get it. But man, when you hear about people going, am I going to go homeless? Like, wow. We've all heard those stories about people who have to make the decision, am I going to pay my rent or am I going to buy my medicine? When you get there, when you get to that edge, it takes on a whole new prism. It takes on a whole new reality, All right. How do you like the new shirt? Aqua? Yeah, I think it's aqua. It might be another color. When I grew up, there was 8 colors. And now you go to Home Depot, there's literally like 600. I don't know if this is blue. I don't know if this is green. I actually thought on St. Patrick's Day last week, I was hanging out with super producer Stacy. I thought I had a green shirt. And she's like, no, that's royal blue or whatever she said. And I was like, oh, boy. And then the lady at Starbucks who knows us said that's not green. I'm like, wow, Jesus Christ, I thought it was green. Okay. You probably see this on the runways at Milan or Paris in the Fashion Week. I'm rocking it here in America, okay? Enjoy, all right? All right. I was going to tell a story about my dad, but you know what? We're going to move on from that. Maybe I'll get to that tomorrow. Let's talk about the clown circus. That is the Trump administration. And we are off and running, taking no prisoners, telling no lies. The Trump administration, it's like the clown car at the circus. The little car parks there and literally one after another, clowns on clowns on clowns get out. And boy, that's literally what this administration is sprinkled in with, right? Dumb on dumber on dumber. Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels, man, they literally would be the 2 most responsible people in this cabinet. But I digress. So, as we talked about yesterday, the Trump administration had a group text that they added in the editor of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, and they discussed plans to attack the Houthi rebels in the Red Sea, and they carried it out. They actually included the weapon systems, what time they were going to hit. I mean, it was, might as well just put it in the middle of Times Square, right? Well, in spite of all their incompetence, which is amazing, they take it to new levels all the time, it seems like we had some Capitol Hill hearings today, and we had some of the usual suspects, okay? I'm not sure which one's Kaiser Sose, but we had Kash Patel and Tulsi Gabbard and, some other people who were in this text. They were there for another reason, but, when this story broke, all of a sudden everything changed. The whole prism changed. And Mark Warner is the lead Democrat. on the Armed Services Committee in the Senate. He kind of took the bull by the horns, and we are off and running. Hold on. Just be patient there, you little turbos.
Back to what I addressed at the outset. I mean, this was not only sloppy, it not only violated all procedures, but if this information had gotten out, American lives could have been lost. The Houthis had this information, could reposition their defensive systems. So I want to get a little more information about this. Director Gabbard, did you participate in the group chat with Secretary of Defense and other Trump senior officials discussing the Yemen war plans?
Senator, I don't want to get into the specifics.
Ma'am, were you on? You're not going to be willing to address. So you're not, are you denying? Matt, were you?
So what we have here is the first in comp, right? This is Tulsi Gabbard, and she is literally swimming in the North Atlantic without a life preserver, right? She is going to say, I can't talk about anything. This is being reviewed by the national security. Now, make sure you be very, very careful to listen. She is deflecting on deflecting. She is not giving any straight answers. And honestly, if they asked her if she had human DNA, well, I doubt she could say yes, because I'm not sure she's human. But let's continue.
Answer my question, ma'am. You were not TG on this group chat?
I'm not going to get into the specifics.
So you refuse to acknowledge whether you were on this group chat?
Senator, I'm not going to get into the specifics.
Why are you going to get into the specifics? Is it because it's all classified?
Because this is currently under review.
Because she doesn't want to get fired, and somebody's head's going to roll here real effing quick.
By the National Security
Because
Council.
it's all classified? If it's not classified, share the text now.
Now, Mark Warner makes a great point here. Is this group text classified or it is not classified? Now, half the Trump administration is coming out and saying nothing, there was no classified information in it. But Tulsi here is saying, well, I can't talk about it because, hey, it's under review and it's classified information. Mark Warner is asking, which one is it? Is it classified information or is it not? And if it's not, why can't you release it?
As the White House previously
Is it classified or non-classified information on this text?
I can confirm.
Director Radcliffe, were you on the group chat?
Senator, I was on a signal messaging group.
So you were the John Radcliffe on that chat?
I was.
Thank you.
Now, you're going to see two members of the Trump administration go in divergently different ways. Tulsi is, I want to save my job. I don't want to have to go back to picking up bottles and cans on the beaches of Waikiki. And this gentleman is saying, okay, I'm going to find my moment here, right? I'm going to find it. I'm going to at least admit I'm in the Trump administration.
Thank you.
Can I provide some context, Senator, to that?
Yes, but I've got a series of questions.
Well, but I think it's important because at the outset, you made a couple of comments about signal messaging using encrypted apps. So that we're clear, one of the first things that happened when I was confirmed as CIA director was signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers.
Now listen to what he is saying, and there is a very big distinction which he diverts from. The CIA is a civilian organization, very different than Pig Hegseth, who ran this group chat, who is the head of the Defense Department. At that point, it becomes national security. It is a defense-operated chat.
One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that
for the CIA
preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
You know, he's going to go far in this administration because at the end of the day, if you really want to believe in it, hey, it's Biden's fault. And if this guy really wants to ascend up the chain, somehow figure out a way to blame Barack Obama.
I've got a series of questions. If you're making the statement, if you're making the statement, the signal is a secure channel.
No, can I answer that? It is
I've got a series of
end-to-end decryption. So finish.
understand
It is
encryption.
permissible to use to communicate and coordinate for work purposes.
Now, listen, the United States government has spent billions and billions of dollars on apps and communication devices that will be secure so our enemies, the adversaries, can't listen in. What he is saying is for work. Like, I need to send you some payroll stuff. I need to know this. I need not national security stuff. And he is being very, very slippery here.
Provided, Senator, that any decisions that are made are also recorded through formal channels. So those were procedures that were implemented.
Directly.
My staff implemented those processes, followed those processes, complied with
So are
those
you saying
processes,
that-
and finally, just please. So my communications, to be clear, in a Signal message group were entirely permissible and lawful and did not include classified information.
Well, we will
to be
make
clear.
that determination, because if it's not classified, share the text with the committee.
Exactly. Now, two things are going on here, and it is very important. It is very important to understand this. He is the CIA. He is not a branch of the military. When Pig Hegseth shared the military attack plans, it became a military operation. He is doing a very brilliant job of saying, hey, we use it for work. We are not coordinating military strikes. I was just in the group text. I'm allowed to use it for my work. Pig Hegseth is not allowed to use it there, and he is not defending him. That is the big difference. And that is a very, very crucial point that seems to have escaped them. I applaud Mark Warner. Okay, I'm not happy that he didn't want to get rid of that effing Chuck Schumer, but I digress. He's up against it because they are very good at stonewalling. Like, nothing to see here. I'm not even sure what time it is. You know, I don't know. Nothing to see here. Blah, 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 blah. So we're going to see where this story goes. But there is a cute little anecdote that came out of the House of Representatives yesterday. And this came from Republican Representative Don Bacon, a member of the House Armed Service Committee and a former Air Force Brigadier General. Thank you for your service, sir. He says, I think the most accountable or the guilty person is the Secretary of Defense because he put in all the highly classified information. Exactly. That is where the CIA director gets a pass, but not Pig Hegseth. And if this keeps growing, they're going to wrap the rope around Pig Hegseth's neck. That's what's coming. There's going to be a fall guy. It's going to be Pig Hegseth. Now, Trump yesterday rallied around the bandwagon and said, hey, Mike Waltz, he's doing a great job. So to me, Pig Hegseth, he better worry about it, seeing if he can get his Fox job on the weekend. You know, and at least he can go back to drinking. We already know he likes doing that. Huh. And that is, he talked about he's facing pressure from the right because there's been numerous judges who have ruled against the Trump administration. Okay? So Mike Johnson floated on Tuesday night the possibility of Congress eliminating some federal courts. Going to eliminate the ones we don't like. That's what we're going to do. All right. Of course, they forgot all about the 4 years under the Biden administration when they keep running to that district court in Lubbock, Texas, which was like literally one of the most conservative judges around, and he kept putting a federal judge around, and he kept putting a stop to all kinds of the Biden administration. You know, the student loan program, things like that. Remember when they were going to forgive student loans? That's where it came from, you know? they forget about what they did for 4 years. Nothing to see here. We don't want our Fuhrer to be angry. It's the latest attack from the Republicans on the federal judiciary as courts have blocked a series of actions like we've talked about. Trump and his allies have called for the impeachment of certain judges. And as far as I'm concerned, go ahead. Let them do it. That's fine. You want to start impeaching judges because they don't rule the way you want? I'm cool with it. Because you know what? In less than 4 years, we're going to be back in power. And then we can just rain it down. Forget the nice guy. Take off the gloves. Take off the gloves. Let's George Foreman him, man. KO. Haymakers. That's what we're going to do. But Mike Johnson, he has to kiss the ring. He's got to kiss some butt. He's got to lick the boot. He says, we do have authority over the federal courts, as you know. We can eliminate an entire district court. We have power of funding over the courts and all these other things. But desperate times call for desperate measures, and Congress is going to act. All right. He wants to make Trump happy, right? This is going to be a major flashpoint when the fiscal year budget comes up in September 30th. And about whether funding is real, whether it has to be enforced. Congress allotted the money for these things. Trump is jumping up and down. Remember, he's a lame duck. These moments are going to come back. The economy is cratering. All right? It's funny. For 4 years, I got a lot of Republican friends, right? Unfortunately, it seems like all my friends are Republicans, except for a couple stalwarts. And, for 4 years, all I heard was high prices, high prices, high prices, right? And I said, well, have you seen these job numbers? These job numbers are the best we've seen in 50 years. That doesn't matter. It's like the old saying, when your neighbor loses their job, it's a recession. When you lose your job, it's a depression. Yeah, it exactly is. And now they're talking to people in the economic side of the Trump administration. I can't remember the gentleman's name I saw on CNN this morning. And he was like, oh, no, the price is going up. No, that's just soft data. That doesn't mean anything. The thing you really got to look at is the jobs report. And I was like, oh, my God. For 4 years, you've been saying it didn't mean nothing. But now it's the end-all, be-all, right? Yeah. Wow, funny thing happened on the way to the forum, right? All right. Let's talk one more little story. And this is another thing. I'm going to try and make something maybe a little more human. We've all talked about the deportation. Actually, I got into a kind of a kerfuffle with my mom today, and she said, oh, all those Venezuelans they sent, they were all criminals and gang leaders. And I said, the problem is they rounded them up, put them on a plane, and we don't know what they were and who they were. She goes, well, I know they were all criminals. I said, I understand that, but they need to go into a court and show a judge that that is real. They do. You can't just arbitrarily say, hey, that guy's a criminal, and send him to El Salvador. But they did, okay? So now we got Llewellyn Dixon, who came to the United States from the Philippines over 5 decades ago. God bless her. She's a green card holder. She's been held for 3 weeks at an Immigration and Customs Enforcement Detention Center in Tacoma, Washington. She's 64, Dixon. She lives in Edgewood, Washington, and works as a lab technician at the University of Washington Medicine School. She was detained February 28th at the Seattle-Tacoma International Airport after returning from a trip to the Philippines, according to her family members. On March 2nd, Dixon was transferred to the ICE facility in Tacoma, where she's still in custody today. Okay? Quite a while. Good luck you. Good luck you. Now, they got an attorney, Dixon's family, and the attorney has said that she is being held because of a conviction a criminal conviction for embezzlement. She stole some money at a bank she worked at in 2001. 2001. 24 years ago. But that nonviolent conviction hasn't prevented Dix's renewal of her green card or international travel in the past, which included multiple trips in 2024 to the Philippines and Turkey. All right. Well, that was under Biden. I guess we got a new sheriff in town, right? Now, she knows what this is. This is Trump versus Biden. You know, whatever it is, right? Benjamin Orserio, her attorney, said Dixon was never ordered to serve time in jail or prison as a result of the conviction. It was a nonviolent conviction. She had to pay back the money, which was $6,000. She did. She made restitution. Nothing happened. She is in jail. Her family is worried she's going to get deported. She might. I don't know. But these are the kind of stories that keep popping up every day. And, you know, when you sit there and go, hey, you know, she did some stuff. She got a felony. You know, smoking marijuana is a federal felony. It is. Let's just think about that for a second. You know, lying on a federal form is a felony. Okay? I'm going to go down the rabbit hole here. Let's talk about California. Let's talk about California and how every person in California who lawfully buys a gun has committed a felony. What you saying, John? What you saying? Okay? On the California form, there's document 4377. Okay? And it asks you, have you ever smoked marijuana? Have you ever done drugs? Paraphrasing here, but give me some rope. And if you say yes, you can still, in California, you can get the right to own a gun. Okay? Now, if you say no and you lie, you're committing a felony. Okay? So most people in California say yes. They say, yes, I've done marijuana. I've done drugs. That's a federal felony. There's no way around it. If you have a gun in California, you have committed a felony. Straight up. No equivocation. There is no way around it. Unless, for the two people in California who say, no, I've never done drugs, and who actually haven't done drugs. Okay? We all had our indiscretions. We've all had our youth. We've all smoked a little wacky tobacco, whatever we're going to call it. I'm just calling it right there. That every gun owner in California has committed a felony. There is no doubt. So when we sit here, especially the right, which is the majority of gun owners, sits there and says, shouldn't have committed a felony, don't look too hard in the mirror, because you all have committed a felony. And the day of adjudication comes. You don't know when, you don't know how, but it does. All right, that's our podcast for tonight. I told you I'm going to speak the truth. It is what it is. But don't judge lest thee be judged. Okay, there's a little Bible. Throwing you a little Bible today. I see the Pope's recovering. I'm glad to see that. That's a good thing. If you could, don't be sad. Yeah, hit that like and subscribe. I was trying to segue into it, and I did a terrible job. But I'm getting better. I will say I love the comments. They're touching. They humble me. They make me realize why I really want to do this. And I want to do it because we're all in this together. Don't be sad because we're going away. Be happy that we love each other. We have a common goal, and we are going to win. We are. We're going to restore democracy. We're going to restore love. Just believe. Just believe. All right. That's it for today, and I will see you soon.